Welcome, everyone. Really excited to see all of you here and excited that you're taking time out of your busy schedules to come listen to our talk today. Some real quick logistics. Our presentation today is being recorded and it will be shared after we have time to process it and upload it to our YouTube channel. If you have questions, that's awesome. Please, as soon as something pops into your mind, feel free to drop it into the chat or the Q&A. And at the end, we'll go through and answer questions. My name is Christopher Tull, and I'll be sort of your MC today. I'm the project manager for the California Data Collaborative, and also known as the CaDC. The CaDC is a nonprofit membership-driven organization where water agencies collaborate to build community and technology that helps reduce uncertainty and enable confident decisions. Our goal is a water sector that's inspired and empowered to make informed, data-driven decisions. So webinars like this one are an important piece of that vision because they provide a window into how utilities are innovating around data and technology to better serve their customers. Our webinar today is all about engaging and empowering utility customers using digital platforms. So to that end, we've brought together two exciting and extremely qualified speakers. Just to give you a quick agenda for the day, we're going to start off with a conversation with Jonathan Cruz from the Molten Miguel Water District to hear about what it's like running a customer-focused, tech-savvy water utility. And after that, we'll hear from Bronwyn Wegant from Smart Energy Water to talk about how a leading technology company empowers utilities with the tools they need to perfect the customer experience. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Jonathan Cruz, and let's dive in. So if you want to come on camera, John. So I've known John for about 6 years now through my work at the California Data Collaborative. And just real quick, you there, John?
Yes, sorry. It says the host has stopped my video. So
that's not good. Let me fix that. How's that, John?
There we are.
Sorry about that. It wouldn't be a webinar without technical difficulties.
I love any kind of tech presentation that, of course, inevitably starts off with some kind of technical difficulty. It would be odd if it didn't happen, I would say.
Exactly. So I've known John for about 6 years now through my work at the Data Collaborative. And so I've had this chance to see him rise through the ranks at Molten Miguel, from a financial analyst to become the financial planning manager, and up to his current role as director of financial planning and innovation. So I'd like to start off this interview to really ask you about your role, John, and because the way that I see it, you have this really interesting role where you sort of oversee finance, customer service, and not many utilities can boast this, but Molten has a data team. So you're at the intersection of all those. So I'd like to ask you really, what your vision for how, these pieces of the organization fit together. And, does that give you sort of a unique lens that others might benefit from hearing about?
Sure. I would definitely say it's been, great getting to work with you over the years, Chris. And, also as we're kind of seeing the evolution of how utilities are leveraging data, and also seeing how we're using that internally to kind of, keep building up this profile of ours. In particular, as it relates to the interconnection between finance, customer service, and the data team, really, it's almost that I couldn't see it any other way. If you think about finance, especially from the utility side, you've got customer bills, right? And customer service, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, any utility is really here to provide service to their customers. These are essential services that our customers can't do without. And really, it's something that I certainly take a lot of pride in working with, but also want to recognize that the customer, from our perspective, doesn't really have a choice. They can't just go somewhere else. But so when we think about it from that lens, we want to make sure too that because this interaction is so critical to just their day-to-day lives, that we're doing a good job of making sure that it's a pleasant experience. And so where I see the overlap between finance and customer service, of course, is that you can't have anything without your customers. And so the finances of the utility are able to be maintained because of the customers that are there ultimately, paying the bills. Also, I think there's a unique opportunity there, kind of harkening back to my economics days, where you have a unique setup where you're actually getting to use these goods and services before you pay for them, right? You get billed after the fact. And so from that econ interaction perspective, you've already kind of taken away the decision from the price signal that you see. And so for me, it was really important to try and find a way to close that timeline so someone can actually understand the impacts of what's going on with the decisions that they're making as it relates to water. And in particular for something like the water conservation landscape that we're in now. Just as an example, one of the first projects that I worked on at the district was converting all of our accounts from bi-monthly billing to monthly billing. We were going into the drought, and we're considering implementing penalties as part of our water shortage contingency plan response, and really wanted to recognize the fact that if somebody has a leak, let's say at the beginning of the billing cycle, and we're billing them bi-monthly, you're really not looking at that customer even receiving any kind of notification until until they receive their bill, which might well be 8 to 10 weeks after the incident has occurred. And that's water that they're not necessarily getting any benefit from. It's certainly not being applied to any kind of other beneficial use. And so finding a way to get that kind of signal out to a customer sooner was something that's been a priority for me here since day one. And I couldn't possibly go through any of these kinds of major changes without some extensive help from the data science community, where you're able to go and look at the enterprise billing system information and actually see what kinds of impacts the decisions that you might have at a policy level end up having in terms of customer outcomes. Just as one example of that, in an initial project I was able to work on with actually UCR, my alma mater, we were able to go and take years and years of customers' residential information or residential billing information and actually find out, we implemented water budget-based rates in 2011. It made sense to do it, but was it actually a good idea or not? And what we ended up finding, because we were able to go through a robust econometric study, was that yes, in fact, the customers who had been inefficient previously became efficient, and the customers who were already efficient didn't really change. So, you're not having something where you're just kind of looking at policy and saying, well, it seems like a good idea. We actually really back that up with the data to inform all of this. And so it's been great to have, not just a lot of internal support at the executive level, but also all the way up from our board, that recognizing the opportunities that you have with data have really allowed us to transform the organization. And that just simply can't happen without support.
Yeah, that's a great point. Having the ability to go in and really, assess the impact of some of these policy decisions, I think it sounds like it's been a long road to get there. And that's, my next question is actually sort of focused there, because so I'll take a step back and say that, I'm very biased in my world. I'm in this world of water and data, and I've known, folks at Molten for a long time. But from what I've seen, Molten to Gale really has this reputation for pushing the boundary of what can be done with data and technology in the utility sector. And so, you talked about, having this expertise in economics and, building this capacity for analyzing and using data. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the role of data, the role that data plays at Molten to Gale, and some of the things that you can do differently because of that capacity that you've invested in?
Absolutely. So I mentioned some of the kind of early on projects that we have done, in particular, some that have come out of our data team, and also, relationships that we've built through the CaDC. But we had a project that we were considering that was going to be looking at a seasonal storage project that was going to be, kind of a no-brainer project where you've got these, seasonal demands that are different from your supply with recycled water. And we were able to go and leverage our AMI data to actually use a pretty interesting forecasting tool that was developed by a gentleman who was actually a data scientist out of Netflix through another partnership called DataKind. And by having the kind of staff on hand with that sort of expertise, we were able to actually go leverage that model and look to see if it was ever actually going to be cost effective for us. Before we make this big capital investment, and this especially during the time where you see a lot of changes in customer demands and how people are using water. If all of a sudden, demands were to change dramatically, what would happen? Or if they were just to continue on this trend. And so we were able to use this econometric model to go and forecast out and see, what would it look like in terms of cost effectiveness. And we ultimately found that that the project for us wasn't going to be cost effective. Of course, there are other partner agencies for whom it very much was, but for us, it just actually didn't make sense to in terms of providing service to our ratepayers. And so we ultimately didn't pursue the project, and that was $20 million that we effectively saved by using data.
Yeah, and that's a great. I think that's a great success story, and I love hearing about that. And I think it really highlights one of the things that is important about building this data capacity in-house is that you have the ability to really ask these questions on a case-by-case basis, on a case-by-case and utility-by-utility basis. Rather instead of just hearing, oh well, it worked for them over there, so it's probably going to work for us. You've laid the groundwork to be able to conduct these studies and make those judgments. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, if I could actually expand on that just a little bit, kind of taking it from the perspective, those are very much policy kinds of discussions, but we've also seen a ton of benefit leveraging data with just some of our day-to-day processes. So as an example, we actually just recently, I believe last week, finished our full AMI implementation and we're pretty excited about it. From our perspective, went at a pretty breakneck pace. We had started with a much smaller pilot that was internally, almost completely internally done, where our customer service field staff are the ones actually going out and installing the radios. We got such a strong positive response from our customers that we had gotten feedback from our board of directors if there was any way we could accelerate this project. Of course, that's something where you're talking about customer bills and you want to make sure that that's right. And how much time do you have to make sure that things are correct? And so to accelerate this meant that, one, we were going to definitely have to bring in an outside vendor. But we also needed to make sure that we really had a good handle on the process of getting all of these systems online and then integrated with our billing system. So our data team worked with our customer service field staff to develop just a kind of a parsing script that would go in and would take the upload information we received from the vendor and then go and confirm that everything that was entered would have been as expected. Our customer service field guys and gals are great and are able to just go and they could look at a meter settings and know that, oh well, based on the serial number, that shouldn't be what it's set at. Like, how do you know all this stuff? And it really is this great source of information from all of these subject matter experts. But then the data team is able to go and work with them, and I like to call it download their field logic, right? And develop a programming logic that will go through and look and say, hey, of the 600 to 800 radios that are getting uploaded this week, because that's about the pace that we were going, I need you to inspect just these 6. You can imagine if we were asking staff to go and manually inspect 600 things that they were going to enter, but there's just no way we would get it done in time without impacting the next billing cycle. And so by having this script in place, our customer service field staff are able to go drop a file in a folder. It automatically runs and it gives them an output that says, hey, of all the ones that you installed this week, these 5 don't really agree with what you would have expected to see. Can you go check on just those ones? And so then we're able to ensure that we have a really quality AMI implementation. And we make sure that nobody's bills get messed up, because there have been some horror stories about AMI rollouts in the past, and we wanted to make sure that we took the time to do it right, and also had the systems in place to give our staff the most support that we could.
Yeah, that's great. And having the ability to have folks who get software and get data, and be there shoulder to shoulder with the folks who get meters and get how water moves through the pipes. That's super powerful. It's I know, just speaking for myself, it's something that I kind of I'm a little bit jealous of sometimes. The folks who get to work, the data folks inside of Molten who get that that experience day to day. So I just want to say that it's great. And I think it should be an inspiration for others. So, apart from just being a leader in data, I think something that has always jumped out to me about Molten to Go is really the commitment to customer service. And I think I want to say you guys changed the header on your website recently. I think for a long time you go there and say like leading the way in customer service or something like that.
Yeah,
so I just want to say, why is building this strong relationship and really putting that, at the focus, rather than, oh, water reliability is our focus. It's, the customer is the focus there.
Sure. I think it just comes back to, at the end of the day, why are we here? We're here to provide the service to our customers. And I think that really, encapsulates a lot of different, different departments, different efforts. You've got long-term planning, you've got short-term response, you've got, just the regular kind of day-to-day stuff. It's important that we have accountants and, along with engineers and field technicians. And I think really the focus on customer service, of course, comes from really the expectations and guidance of our board that, we are going to be absolutely committed to having, one of the best customer service experiences that you can. We're, one of the few agencies that if you actually call our direct lines, a human will pick up. You don't get automatically routed through a electronic phone tree. And that takes resources, absolutely. And also an overall commitment from the staff as well, that, this is why we're here. This is what we're driving at. And because of that, we're able to go and, ensure that the interactions that we have with customers, they might not always start off positive, but we like to end it as that's really our goal. And I think the other important part about having that commitment and partnership with your customers is that, we would love it if our first interaction with you was a positive one, right? If I don't interact with you, if I don't engage with you, all of a sudden now when you have a problem, if this is the first time we've interacted, you can imagine it's quite a bit different than if we've already had this like long-standing maintaining relationship with the customer about providing them with not just service, does the water come on when I turn on the tap? Of course, that's critical, but if a customer wants to pay their bill, how easy or difficult is that for them? If a customer wants to know about their water use, what are we doing to facilitate getting them that information? Data, we talk a lot about data. Data is great, but data doesn't do anything by itself, right? It's that you can go and have someone change that data into information that somebody can go and make an informed decision. And I think that, again, that's been something that's kind of key for driving a lot of the customer engagement initiatives that we've had. So in particular, my customer portal with SEW, that was something where, again, getting back to the kind of first comments I made about that interaction when someone's using their water and being distanced from when they pay their bill, right? The customer is most interested in their water usage when they're looking at their bill. And so for a lot of the platforms that we were looking at for being able to display our AMI information for our customers, it really was something where, you would have to go looking for that information and really want to see it in order to find it. But again, I'm most interested in looking at that when I'm looking at my bill. And so it was really important for us to have a single sign-on integrated experience with our customer portal for, not only can you view your usage, but you can also pay your bill. Check your Google Analytics on your website. I can guarantee you that the number one clicked on page is pay your bill. And so for me, it just didn't make any sense to immediately go and direct somebody away from the messaging or content that you're trying to send when you had them most actively engaged. And so by going through all of the extra work that it took to have an integrated customer portal with a single sign-on experience, we were able to then go direct customers towards the area they were in that interaction that's most important to them. Also present them with information about not just their monthly use, but their hourly use, having them register for leak alerts. And again, by being able to show that integration, we've maintained roughly about half of our customer base are actively enrolled in our customer portal. And that's been maintained. So of course, we're looking for the additional 50%. And I think that's going to be a critical part of our overall kind of demand response and ask for our customers is ensuring that everybody who has a leak knows about it. And that's going to save the customers money. It's going to save us money in the long run. And again, it's just a great opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it shows, right? You talk about you want the first interaction to be a positive one. I can't tell you how many times I've Googled some random water utility in California, and they're on the right side of their Google page is like, 2 reviews, 1 star, and it's because the only time people even think about their utility is when something goes wrong and they have a negative experience. And actually, while you were talking, I did this. I Googled Molten Miguel and 3.9 on Google reviews. So you guys are doing something right.
Yeah, we definitely love getting feedback from our customers. It's something where like you mentioned, there's usually quite a bit of a push for negative reviews, but really making sure that our customers, even when it's something that might not necessarily be the news that they want to hear, is going to be a positive interaction, or at least some kind of actionable outcome. And that really is the goal that we strive for, not just when we pick up the phone, but in any kind of interaction that they have with us.
Yeah. Maybe you started to touch on some of this before, some of the systems that you use, like SEW. I'm going to sort of, put on my, I'm going to betray myself as a techie. But so in the world of software, there's this concept of like a technology stack, where, when you're building software or some sort of application or something, you have a bunch of systems and services that you sort of layer on top of each other to create a product or an experience. So, maybe could you talk a little bit more, and, this is going to be a little bit sort of into, how is the sausage made? But I know I'm definitely interested in knowing how the sausage is made. So I'm hoping that others on the call-in are as well. But could you talk a little bit about, I guess, Molten's tech stack and how you mentioned some additional upfront work to get everything integrated and working well together. Could you just speak to that a bit?
Sure. Well, given that this is a CaDC webinar, I hope that it's a safe space for data nerds. Yeah, absolutely. The stack is really something that's super important. And I think really it's a recognition that there are a multitude of systems and departments and individuals that it takes to get a finished product. I think this is definitely an area where we start to see the industry kind of changing. And I really appreciate it. One is that you're not looking for, one size fits all. This one product is going to go and do everything, right? It's that you've got one product here and another product there. One really does a great job of meeting the needs of, say, like our operations staff. So, that's going to be their primary consideration because that's the primary function of that tool. How do we go then and integrate that with, the customer portal and getting customers that information? So we need to recognize that those other systems are there. So the stack that we have, I'd say is, there's definitely different data systems, but also there's the recognition that you have subject matter experts in all these different key areas that need to be involved in the development of the stack. So how is it that we're going and understanding the information that's coming from our meter reading software and using that to go and integrate into the customer portal, or from there, taking extracts from the customer portal of customers' communication preferences so that we can go and run MailChimp campaigns. And so there's lots of layers that go into it where, we have our enterprise system that has some of the information. We have our metering infrastructure that has another piece of the information. And then we have some other kinds of internal reporting tools, but then also external tools. That we use a platform called RConnect. It's a really great platform for our data team to be able to kind of quickly build up reports or dashboards for internal staff, and also use some of that for external purposes as well. For example, our bill calculator that we have on our website is completely open source. It's something that we have on our website. It's been a great tool to help customers understand water budget based rate structures, but again, having the systems in place where I can go and pull the billing information into a web app that then goes and resides on our web page, there's several connectors at that point. And so that really is the kind of key with thinking about a technology stack, is that it's not, you're going to need to think about how to integrate these different systems together. And that's definitely something that's a critical aspect of any kind of planning.
Yeah. And it's, you really need to have a lot of these robust integrations to create that customer experience that you're aiming for, right? From what you've told me in the past, so you've through your main customer portal with SEW, you've got so you've got their bill information integrated, you have the AMI data integrated, you have what else do you have? You have like mailing and mail integrations built into there.
Yeah, it's again something where we really try to emphasize thinking about this from the customer's perspective, right? So, and I think this is kind of true just where the industry is headed overall, is that customers are accustomed to things like Amazon, right? Like they want to go and go to this portal. I can think of Amazon as kind of a portal, right? Order something, it knows my shipping preferences, and I can access it 24/7, and something just shows up at my door, and I didn't have to have any interaction with the person. But then you also have customers who still like to call, because that's kind of the way that they've just always done it. And so how do we facilitate both? And so for the integrations that we're talking about, yes, there's absolutely the billing information component. So that's an integration between SEW, Paymentus, and then also our own billing platform, and getting all of those different data handoffs to work just for that one function. From there, you've got other kinds of notification updates where we're going and we're pulling information back out to say, like, is this person interested in paperless billing? Are they on auto pay? Have they missed payments? And so going through and really integrating all of those sources is something where we're looking at it again from the customer's perspective of, well, I logged into the portal, I should be able to do whatever it is that they're looking for. We don't want to make it difficult for them to try and get that information if they're looking for it. We spend so much time trying to get any kind of engagement and interaction with our customer, and then right when we finally have that, all of a sudden, if it becomes difficult, you've just lost someone, right? So we want to make sure that when somebody's actively looking for the information, in particular about for our case, water usage, right? I want to know about my water use. We should make that as easy as we can for them.
Yeah. So do you think? Have you seen, or do you expect that like you mentioned, customers expect sort of Amazon level of service, right? I mean, have you noticed any change from your customers? Like, do they have higher expectations now? Do they? I don't know. How have you seen the sort of customer response to what you're offering?
Yeah, I think that definitely the customer expectations have significantly increased. We went from being an organization or kind of an industry where it was like silent service. Our pipes are underground. If you never hear from us, great, right? It's going to be when your water doesn't turn on that all of a sudden there's going to be, that's when you're thinking about it. We want it to just be kind of a given. That's completely changed. I think there's just this overall appetite for information. I'm interested in knowing, all of my credit card transactions, what my spending trends look like. I mentioned Amazon, but you can think about this across the board. How many web apps or phone apps do you have that go and tell you, what's your sleep like this week? What's, how much activity have you gotten? All of this kind of like, hyper information that's coming across has become the expectation. And yet the really the most critical natural resource in everyone's lives is lagging behind in that regard. And so I don't think that customers' expectations have lagged with it. I think it's that we need to catch up with what they're expecting. And we absolutely have seen that. We've had customers say, like, oh, well, I got a leak alert. I'm sure you're already on your way out here. Well, we're not necessarily like rolling a truck to your house right now. We appreciate that. But, there might be some steps that you can take internally. We have a great water efficiency staff that, when customers call in, either they or our customer accounts groups can go and answer, kind of routine, troubleshooting types of questions. But then they're also able to go and look through our customer portals and other portals to see, I see that you got the leak alert. I'm looking at your usage. I do see that you have continuous flow. We can't necessarily say if somebody has a leak or not, right? But they can tell them what they're seeing and help them interpret that information. And I think it's something that has been tremendously helpful in terms of our interactions with customers, but also in terms of positive outcomes. When somebody calls in asking what's going on, it's a much better conversation when you can actually explain quite a bit to them, as opposed to not having any kind of actionable outcome. It's, well, your bill's high and here could be the reasons. I'd much rather have been told about it beforehand. Why didn't we deal with this before it became an issue? And I think that's where data in particular and having that kind of information going to your customers makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean that sounds it sounds great. And I'm actually checking the time. I think we have maybe just 2 more minutes or something, but I can't let this opportunity pass without asking you, which is what sort of what comes next? Where would you like to see, where do you want to see Molten Miguel go? Where do you want to see the industry go in terms of this, communicating and relationships with the utility?
Right. I think absolutely the where we want to go is one, questing after that last 50%, getting that 50% enrollment, up to 70, 80%, making it again really easy for customers. But I think for Molten, the other aspect is really integrating that with our operations. I think there's a huge appetite from customers to understand, I see Molten Miguel trucks driving around the service area, like what's going on over here. That's something that would generate a phone call before, but having, service notification or service outage notifications or work in your area, I think is a great way for the utilities to really communicate the value that they have to their community in a much more robust way. Everybody here does really great work and is ultimately looking at it from the perspective that, this is a precious natural resource that our community can't be without, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that we provide it at the highest level of service that we can. And that really is something that I think will always be our goal, which means we always need to keep innovating and keep going to make sure that we keep meeting those needs.
Well, I love that spirit, and I think it shows that it shines through in terms of what your Molten Miguel has achieved, and really hope that you guys continue to excel and continue to be a beacon for others to learn from. So, with that, I just want to thank you, John. We've come to the end of this portion of our session. I really appreciated all your perspective. And so we're going to actually, pivot a little bit now. John will stay on the line to answer questions at the end. But, one of the threads that kept coming up, during this conversation was the role of SEW as customer portal, as, a sort of a platform that integrates with some of the, many of the other systems that Molten Miguel has internally. So I'd like to welcome our next speaker now, who is Bronwyn Weygant. Bronwyn is the Product Support and Account Management Director for Smart Energy Water, that's SEW, for their small and medium businesses. She believes in using innovation, collaboration, and creativity to solve problems, improve processes, and deliver high-quality customer service. Bronwyn has natural gas industry experience with her work with the Williams companies in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And most recently, she worked with the city of Boulder, Colorado, managing the utility billing group. During her time with the city, she helped implement SEW's Smart Customer Mobile and Smart IQ products to serve Boulder's water customers. So welcome, Bronwyn. And if you're able to come on camera, you're welcome.
Okay. Here I am. Made it.
Yeah, welcome. So to hand it off to you, Bronwyn. Could you tell us a little bit more about SEW and what it is that you folks do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to share my screen and have a few slides that we can do. And let's see. Take that one and start this. So can everyone see the screen?
I am not seeing a screen share. Hopefully you have permission to do that. Just let me see. Yeah, I'm not seeing the screen come through.
No? Okay, let's see.
Oh,
wait. How about?
There we go.
Now.
It's, yep, there it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. Make this more. Okay. So I wanted to thank Chris for inviting me to do this, and also thank Jonathan for talking about MNWD. I work with Jonathan and his team and really enjoy working with them. It's really nice to have them so engaged and so interested in providing such great customer service. So I am new to SEW actually, and as Chris mentioned, I had been at the city of Boulder and had implemented some of SEW's products, and that's how I got to know them back in 2017. And so we've really enjoyed using that, their system to provide information to our customers. One of the interesting things is that Boulder did model water budgets after Irvine Ranch Water District, and we worked with SEW to be able to display on the customer screens their comparison of water use to water budgets. So that was something that SEW really helped us do. So I just wanted to tell you a little about who is Smart Energy Water, which we call SEW, and that we really like to help our customers connect with their customers. So we, our motto is engage, empower, and educate, and we serve utilities such as water, power, natural gas, and solar now. Since I've gotten to know SEW, they've really grown, and we're now over 1,150 employees. We now serve 28 countries, or have providers in 28 countries, which equates to 865 million people. And we, the transactions are over 150 billion transactions. And I think sometimes people forget that, they do their one payment transaction, but when you have, millions of people doing this all over the world, it's quite a task to keep everything organized and working well. We even opened our new office in Dubai, which is was really a nice thing to do this year. Here are some of our customers. Because our software is scalable, we can actually serve small, medium, and large utilities. And so we're able to serve the whole spectrum of clients. And here are some of our partners that we work with, which are other tech companies that serve the utility industry, such as Esri and Itron, PayPal, Oracle. So we're very happy to be able to partner with them. So what does SEW have? Well, we've talked about a little bit about Smart Customer Mobile that MNWD has, and they also have what we call the Smart IQ system. And then we also have a Smart Mobile Workforce, and that's for the Utility Operations Group. So Smart Customer Mobile really enables the customers to view their bills, pay their bills. They can set up auto pay on it. They can select to be notified, as Jonathan was mentioning, on leak alerts or bill alerts when their bill's ready to be viewed. And we want customers to be more aware now. And as Jonathan was mentioning, that as water utilities, we hope our customer can just turn on the tap and have clean, safe drinking water, and then they can flush their toilet and all the waste is taken away. But we also know that we need them to know how much water they're using and to be a little more efficient and to conserve nowadays. And customers sometimes are very unattached to their water use. In Boulder, we had a customer who thought the water came out of his hose at 1 gallon per minute. And actually the meter tech showed him that it came out at 10 gallons per minute. So that just showed you how little that maybe the customers are knowledgeable about their water, right? We want to just use it and not have to think about it. But as a utility, we want to really increase that awareness. And SEM allows the customer to see their usage, and they can see it on a monthly basis, or if the utility has AMI, as Jonathan was saying, they put in, we can actually, on the SEM product, compare it to the weather patterns. So how many of us have received a call that said, I couldn't have used that much water, but if the customer service rep can go out and show the customer that, you know, those hot, dry days, they used much more water, then it helps to bring attention to that and helps the customer service rep explain maybe the high use. One of the features that SEM has is that we offer a mobile app, which you actually can download from the App Store or Google Play, that can be used on iPhone, Android, or your tablet. And you can have your bill information right at your fingertips. So I actually live in Boulder, and so I am a customer of the Boulder utility. And my husband and I were out in the front yard looking at the condition of our grass, and he asked me how much water we had used, and I just looked it up on my iPhone. And so it was really, really easy to just be able to pull it up while we're standing there talking. Another thing that SEW has done is implement payment services. So we now integrate with our system so we can provide that service to our customers also. We are PCI compliant now. We offer multiple payment methods: Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, ACH, so customers can pay with their bank account. And we provide services such as IVR and even a call center with a live agent to take your customer's payment. And on the mobile apps, what's really neat is that your customers can use their preferred payment method now. And so if they like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, Venmo, that those just are automatically become available when the customer uses the app. SEW has also expanded the platform to accommodate different kinds of customers. And I think MNWD has taken advantage of some of this. We call them personas. And so, for example, a property manager who can manage portfolios of his properties, and he can select multiple accounts to pay with one transaction is a good example. And so we've tried to design different personas to accommodate different types of customers. One thing that Jonathan mentioned too was using Smart IQ with the leak notifications. And so that has really a nice feature that SEW offers, where the utility can actually define what is a leak for different account types. And then once the system detects that, it can use push notifications or email or both to notify the customer that they have a leak. Smart IQ can also be used to study your customer behavior and see all these analytics. Just like you were talking about data, you can see what browsers your customers are using. Are they using iPhone or Android? You can see how many notifications you've sent customers, how many that they've sent to you. So it makes a really nice way to study your customer behavior. And then we have what I mentioned with Smart Mobile Workforce. And that is for the utility maintenance people or meter techs to go out. You can schedule service orders and dispatch a field crew. You can manage your inventory on it. It has a content management section. And one really neat feature of this is that when you schedule work orders and dispatch your meter tech, the system will actually map out the most efficient route for that technician to go to each service location. And we have a customer in Canada who uses this with his remote field techs. It gets extremely cold. He said this is their one way that they can really connect with their technicians to get them out on emergency repairs if they have an outage. So SEW hopes to really help and partner with their customers and help them increase adoption and reduce the call volume, improve customer self-service so that customers can have information easily at their fingertips and be able to be happy customers, as Jonathan mentioned, have a good experience. So I hope I've given you a little taste of what SEW has.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Bronwyn. I really appreciate you adding that extra, perspective, because over and over we heard about during Jonathan's talk about SEW this, SEW that, because it's so central to their customer focused, process and all the systems that they have in place. So it's great to get that additional background on the company. So yeah, now I'm actually going to ask John if you could stay on, Bronwyn, and John, if you could come back. We have some questions in the Q&A, so I'd like to get to some of those. To start with, I think this one is directed at you, John. They ask, do you incentivize your customers to interact with your portal? For example, cut them a discount on their bill for using the portal.
That's a really great question. So no, we don't provide a financial incentive for customers to enroll in our portal, but I do want to look at it from the perspective of what we do with it. It provides them a tremendous amount of convenience in terms of being able to access information, being able to pay their bill, making that process as easy as possible. And so, I think it's something that is incredibly interesting. Being a public utility, we have to be very, very careful about anything that could possibly be gift of public funds. But, say for like the private utility space, that's absolutely something where, what can we do to drive up adoption? And from our perspective, it really is just making things as easy as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, and we actually have another question about, I think, directed at John about AMI. So Wanda says that it's her understanding that AMI was fully implemented in the last year and that 50% of customers are enrolled in the customer portal. So Wanda wants to know how this was achieved concurrently. And since it's an integrated water billing and customer portal, please confirm if that means 50% of the customers don't currently participate in online billing.
Right. So to answer the first question first, having 50% of the customers enrolled means that these are all customers, especially now that we're fully AMI, these are all customers who can potentially receive leak alerts. So having that opportunity to, again, provide them information about things that are changing, that are kind of actionable now, is ultimately going to drive a lot of our own water conservation efforts. But how did we do it concurrently with the AMI install? That was actually something where we were super happy to have a partner like SEW, where they have data science staff that are on hand as well that could actually scale up the system that we had. We initially pursued the customer portal because we knew that AMI was going to be something that would ultimately help with water demand reductions and conservation efforts. In fact, part of our AMI project was actually, the cost of that was offset through a grant, because we're going to show customers their usage information. And there's some literature out there that indicated that would actually correlate to reductions in water use. And so going to AMI, knowing that this is the area we're going to go in, starting with a pilot, but then making sure that, our partners knew all along that this is something that's going to grow and expand. So great that you can get it working when it's just the small, 1,400 to 3,000 meters, but what happens when I scale it up to all 55,000? And it's a very different customer group as well. So I would say, how do you do this concurrently? Lots of communication and lots of thoughtful planning, setting things up so that, when you bump your head, you can learn from that lesson, and making sure that in the future you have systems in place that are robust to those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that actually ties right into our next question, which I think could, maybe go to John or Bronwyn, or both. And so Russell is asking if you've been able to tie your communication innovations and high frequency data directly to water conservation measurements, and specifically thinking in terms of behavioral changes more than leak prevention, though both are relevant.
Sure. So I would say that's something that I really hope to be able to, quantify a bit more in terms of, once we have this full rollout, you can actually get a much more robust sample of, which messages are customers receiving. Is that going and changing the kind of interaction that they have? And we actually have a study going on where we are looking to see what kinds of messages are customers most responsive to. So when I let somebody know that they have a leak, is it, fix this leak and you'll save money, or fix this leak and save water. That kind of differentiated messaging is something that definitely data helps, but also you need to have the systems in place to be able to conduct those kinds of analysis. And in terms of behavioral change, I think it's a little early for us to be able to really point to something, quantitatively at the district level, but just speaking anecdotally, our customer account staff have done a fantastic job of integrating this kinds of information that the customers potentially could be looking at into their discussion with the customer. So when someone says, I think it was the example that Bronwyn gave earlier, there's no way that I could possibly be using that much water. And, when your customer account rep can go and actually say, well, you're right, that is way more than you would have typically used. I can see on this day, all of a sudden, there's some kind of change in your usage behavior. And so maybe it's not necessarily a leak, but maybe it's a soft toilet or something like that. Or they just have realized that there's, opportunities for things like adoption of more efficient devices, both indoor and outdoor. You've got this kind of unique scenario where most of the water that gets used is used outdoors, and that's also used at a time when nobody tends to be looking at, right? So you've got your most intensive water use being something that is just completely unobserved, but by putting that information into the customer's hands, they're actually able to better understand how, in fact, they are using water. I can see, oh, actually, your sprinkler system is going off every day. It's wintertime, you probably don't need that. Or was there a power outage in your area and the sprinkler system failed? And so then once it reset, now all of a sudden it's back on this like everyday schedule. So having that really has been something where we've definitely seen water conservation benefits, but in particular from a customer education aspect.
Yeah. Did you want to speak at all to sort of some of the options that SEW enables to support water efficiency and behavior change, Bronwyn? I know you talked about water budgets in the past. So.
That Jonathan really mentioned a good point is that I remember when we worked with customers, it was educating them one customer at a time. And the one thing that's nice is, like Jonathan said, they can pull up the screen with the customers. And that's a real benefit that the customer service reps have, is that they don't just talk off the top of their head. They can literally get into the customer's account and see what they're seeing and talk to them and walk them through. And I think a visual is important as much as, talking them to them. So I think he hit on a really good point about just educating customers, and that really helps.
That's great. Thank you both. Moving on, I think this one is for you, Bronwyn. Though it could potentially be for John as well. Bill Moorhead is asking, have you encountered any privacy issues when customers question security, realizing how much of their information is readily available to the agency?
Readily available to the water district versus?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Essentially asking about privacy. I mean, have folks complained about, hey, you have too much of my data, or do you think folks feel sort of, observed, to an excessive degree?
Well, and I know utility data is very, very secure. When we were working with it, and it's protected. It's not like open records that someone can request a person's water use or a person how much they're paying. And then SEW does pride themselves on security of data and protecting that, especially payment information, and that, like I mentioned, we're PCI compliant. And so then you have to achieve a high standing of data security in order to achieve that. And so we do take it very seriously. I can speak to, from that perspective, and maybe Jonathan can speak to the utilities perspective.
Sure. I think privacy is definitely, not just kind of a hot topic right now, but something that I think is just going to be increasingly part of the regular conversation that customers have. So I will say that we have had some customers who have, expressed that they, maybe I definitely don't want this, or I'm not interested in it. But usually that comes from, just assuming that all of a sudden somebody's going to be looking over their shoulder. But really, once we've had a chance to engage and interact with that customer, the narrative really starts to change to how this is something that's helpful for them. And I would say actually, overwhelmingly, the feedback that we get is, less about, here's my part, but more about why aren't you doing this yet already? You know, I want to know about this information right away. How are you using this information to help me? So I would say overall, the majority of the feedback that we've gotten, especially as we were starting to do more of our accelerated rollout, was, well, can I opt in? You know, how quickly can I get on that system? And we have to tell people, well, we got to go billing cycle by billing cycle, but it's definitely something that I'd say we've gotten a lot more interest in, especially, you know, again, just customers expecting that information is available to them.
Yeah. You know, related to sort of customer, you know, getting the, you know, finding out what customers think about how much data you have and how much, you know, information is available to them that can be helpful. So John Brooks, I think, has a quick question here about just asking what are NPS and CSAT scores, which was one of the functions that SEW offers.
Customer satisfaction is what those represent. I can't tell you exactly what NPS is the acronym for, but customer satisfaction is what those are representing.
But I can actually speak to, I'm not sure about CSAT, but I can speak to NPS, which is, it's if you've ever like opened a website or gotten an email and it said, how likely are you to refer this, you know, such and such to a friend or to a neighbor? And you rate 1 to 10. Net Promoter Score is a metric that, you know, you ask your customers how likely they are to recommend this, and then you can calculate this Net Promoter Score from that. And then, so also related to metrics, we have a question for you, John, in the chat, which is how you plan to assess the efficiency and efficacy of your SEW system, given that you just completed your full deployment?
Sure. I think the couple of easiest metrics that you can think of course, there's overall adoption rates, you know, being able to maintain the majority of our customers majority of our active customers within the portal. But then from there, I really want to look at it from the perspective of, you know, I notified a customer that they had a leak and I can see that some intervention was taken by them. I mean, that to me is really kind of the ideal for how you can look at what was the efficacy. Was that, did we actually see any kind of change in behavior or some kind of action taken? And that's something that we're absolutely able to do by leveraging AMI and notifications and putting all of those things together. Again, looking at it from the lens of, you know, what is the customer's experience like? How easy was it for them to get that information, and how easy was it for them to take action?
Well, we still have a bunch of questions outstanding, but unfortunately we're just about out of time. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there. To the folks whose questions we didn't get to, I don't know if, I suspect John and Bronwyn are welcome to, you know, open to email inquiries, and would you know, welcome sort of networking opportunities there. I don't. Maybe you guys could share your emails in the chat if you don't mind being contacted. That might be a good way to get this out to folks.
Mm-hmm. I can do that.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Bronwyn. It's been a really great conversation today. So just to close out to all our attendees, I'd say if you would like to be notified about future webinars from the Data Collaborative, I'd encourage you to sign up for our newsletter or to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find all those links on our website, which should be visible on your screen. If you do that, you'll also be among the first to be notified when the details are available about our annual conference this summer. It's called, this year is our 7th annual California Water Data Summit. And it'll be packed with speakers and sessions that are just as high quality as today's webinar. So with that, I hope you all learned something today. And thank you, and I wish you all a happy and productive rest of your day. Goodbye.